What's up, beautiful soul family, and welcome to this Saturday night soul session live with me, LC. And I got an amazing special guest, my soul brother, here tonight. He's basically a regular here on the Recovery Soul Food podcast. And anytime I want to talk about something that is really close to me and that just has really affected my life and some places that I'm in and work I'm doing, I always call on my brother, MartinJon Garcia. He is a podcaster, he's a workshop presenter, he's an artist, he's just an amazing human being. He has the Recover Yourself brand, and I tell you, if you haven't gone through his either personal mentoring or any one of his workshops, I'm telling you, you're missing out. But either way, he's an amazing human being, and I'm grateful to have him here with us tonight because we're going to talk about identity crisis. The addiction to identity and how we're all chasing the same high. And in my opinion, it's validation. You know, identities help give us this blueprint to whatever validation it is that we're looking for. And I know in my own life that I have walked through several identities. Some that have been extremely negative, others that have been amazingly positive, and they're all like steps into, I guess, helping me get to a place of true freedom, of having an identity, an ultimate identity within being just a divine expression of creation through a creator. And so that's what true freedom means to me. And wherever you are tonight, in whatever area of your life that you are, find yourself in right now, I know that you're going to find some amazing content and some, love and amazing energy and healing right here tonight. So let me go ahead real quick and let you in on some things that we're doing. Remember, Pamela Topchian's book, I Didn't Come This Far to Only Come This Far, is available on Amazon, and also her journals and her art. It's amazing. Make sure that you go and check out Pamela Topchian. There's also some books that are in my awareness right now, and I just did an episode with this guy, Gregorio Lewis, that will be out soon, probably next week. And he's got some amazing workbooks. So Better Days, a mental health and recovery workbook. You can get these at sanityisafulltimejob.com. These are amazing little books. And I can't wait until MartinJon's book comes out. We're going to let him talk about it tonight, but I'm really looking forward to this. Make sure that you go ahead and connect with MartinJon at his link tree, but this is going to be up later too. Listen, y'all, I'm so ready to get into this Saturday night soul session live with me, LC, and my great and beautiful friend, MartinJon Garcia. So if you're ready, we're ready. Let's go. Hey, man. I'm so grateful to be here with you.
How's it going? I'm so glad to be here. Always such a pleasure. And I'm like, just to be able to receive your love, man. It's always great. I'm just grateful.
I'm glad that you're here, and I couldn't think of anyone that I'd really rather do this type of episode with, because it really wraps itself kind of around a lot of our personal conversations. And because you have been, for those who haven't heard a bit of this story yet, I will, let it kind of out. You were one of the ones that really just helped expand and open me to what was almost a disaster within identity. When you asked me, and it was not even the most comfortable moment in my life, but when you challenged you challenged it from a heart that was so pure and it was the only way that I could receive it. But when you challenge that identity of just being trans, I I was, in the midst of being uncomfortable, knowing it came from a pure heart and from a person that I respected and loved. So I knew what you were saying to me had true like depth. And it was what I said before we started. It was the dynamite that blew up, this small box that I had again put myself in. And when I was thinking about doing this show, I was just thinking about all of the many identities that I've lived under through my life, from abused and victimized to the all the way we go through to the identity of I'm an addict, I'm just a junkie, I'm a loser, I'm all these things. Even fast forward into recovery is I'm in recovery, I'm an influencer, I'm all of these identities, and each one, as we tend to grow in these boxes, all of a sudden start to become too small. And I'm really interested because you always have the most amazing gifts to give me within our conversations, when we're talking about this. So I would like to hear like some of your take on what identity has meant to you in your life, and
Well,
still.
my identities are interesting, and I've had a lot. I mean, I used to run around. I never used to leave the house without a weapon. Things like that. I never. I always had like a bludgeon or a knife in my car, and those were identities. I didn't need those things, and I recognized I didn't need those things, and I recognized that it was like I had them because I wanted to show them off, or to hold on to these things. But identity is something that I've realized over the years of holding on to identity, that we as a culture, I think, really expect people to live within an identity.
Yes.
Because if you live within an identity, then I can understand you. Right?
Yes.
As long as
Yes.
you have a diagnosis, then I can understand you and I will accept you.
Mm.
And this is slowly come about over a long period of time, hundreds of years, if not more. I mean, I do look at all of the identities that I've had along the way, and I still have identities. I have the identity of MartinJon, the recovery
Yeah.
member, right?
Yeah.
I have the
Yeah.
identity of being someone who had a production company, and so I have the identity of someone who's worked in a tech company, and so like I'm building an app, and I have an identity of somebody who follows and reads the Tao. I have the identity of like all of these identities I have. But one of the things that I think is really important when it comes to like having a relationship with identity is not having a future for that identity.
Talk about that.
Well,
Talk
for
about
me,
that.
it's like I know now I am working with the Tao,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not have a future where I am envisioning myself like this is where I have these things I want to achieve or whatever. I'm working on things in the moment,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily this. I am working towards this end of me as my identity.
Mm. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I was working in my podcast, Recover Yourself podcast and stuff, it was all like, what am I doing today? Who am I now? And then I realized after looking back not long ago, it was like, oh, I'm no longer working in the recovery world. I'm working on the Tao Te Ching, and I'm
Mm.
translating the Tao, and I'm gonna build an app in the Tao. I'm just like, where did recovery go? To know, don't care, just moving on, and making my work as I am. So I'm not attached to the identity,
The attachment. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that what I mean, I'm sure there are identities that I'm attached to. I don't want to
Mm.
say that there's not, because they always come up, And then I have to realize, oh, that's what's causing me grief. That's what's causing me pain. That's what's causing me to restrict.
Yes.
I need this thing. I need this identity. I need to be seen in this way or whatever, one of my big things that I carry with me, and I know, and I've said this out loud so that I can address it, not so people can know or anything. I mean, but it's like, I want to make sure that you respect me, right? I want to be respectable.
Yeah.
I want to be respected. No matter, that doesn't mean that I want to be respected because I have a lot of money, or I want to be respected. I want to be truly respected, and that means for me, like, I have to have a high standard for who I am, because there were things, there were times when, like when I 25, 30 years ago, when I went to New York and I stayed, I was on the street in the Hell's Kitchen and other things like that. I go to peep shows and I do all that kind of, sensory stuff. That wasn't someone I was proud of.
Yeah.
Today, I was proud of myself for doing that then.
Yep.
I was like, this is who I am. This is my identity.
Yes. Yeah.
But if I were to be who I am now then, which is not possible, right? Like, that brought me to this place of being like, I'm not someone who wants to be black bagging it. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that, I don't have my stints with porn and other stuff like that. Those things do happen. But it's like, do I do this from a place of like integrity?
Yes.
Do I have integrity with this? Is this something that I want to hide from? Because if I want to hide from it, then I have these two different identities.
Yes.
And so, so I don't know if I'm going off topic or not, but
no, I think that you're on topic, and I think that you have already brought up, I think, which is the biggest key to how identity can be helpful and harmful in our lives. And I think that the biggest thing that you talked about was the attachment to it, and the inability to be able to see outside of a designed identity, like we've talked about in our personal conversations, working towards things, but at the same time, not laying out this blueprint of, okay, for this identity, I'll use myself an example. So as a recovery speaker, I have to go by this, and this. This is the blueprint to making it within this identity. And the attachment to that is what starts to cause pain when internally I want to grow larger than that one thing. And so it starts to create this push and pull within, I know myself for sure, of, well, what happened to that, And it's the same with what you were talking about with what happened to recovery. There was not this attachment. So like, even right now, if there's an attachment, then I got to break up with that. And it has to be this big deal versus it being this positive, oh, I've gotten here because of this, and I'm now continuing to grow outward. And I think in so many places in our lives that place of attachment is what creates a lot of sorrow and suffering. It has for me in that attachment. So I appreciate what you're sharing right now, for sure.
I think that, we have to look at this because I think a lot of people that are attached to their identities and everybody is born attached.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody is born attached to, like, you are being, I don't want to say everybody, but it is a very rare thing that you are going to be born Jesus, right? we've recognized a handful of people that have been able to do that, like Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, But we are attached to our perceptions, and our perceptions are attached to others, right? So when we're born, we have a limited perception of the world, right? We have the perception that we are being told, like, if you are born in, Iowa, odds of you being raised Buddhist is probably slim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Odds of you being raised a Taoist probably even slimmer, because Buddhism is still a pretty big, takes a pretty big slice of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
You being raised Sikh, maybe even less. Who knows? But either way, if you're grown in Iowa, if you're raised in Iowa, your experience is going to be limited. Now, if you're born in Calcutta, your experience is going to be limited to Calcutta. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're born in the most exotic places, you're still limited to that place.
Yes.
Just because we call it exotic just means they're exotic for someone born in Iowa.
Yeah.
I was born in Chicago. So I had a very unique experience of having been raised in a city, from a time when it was, really empty to a time when it was, doing fairly well. So there's my experience gives me all of my perception of the world. Now, that's limited. Within that experience, especially in the Western world, probably grow up in a reward punishment system. In a reward punishment system, you find out, like I talk to my clients a lot. It's like, tell me what you're good at. They write out all the things they're good at. Now, give me a list of things you're bad at. Now, for each one of those things, I want you to tell me why you're good at it or why you're bad at it.
Mm.
And each one of those is going to correlate with a reward punishment experience.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so you gave up all the things you were bad at because you were punished in some way by not being good at it as everybody else. And so you have steered your life in a way that was, one, started limited to your surroundings, which you can't not do, even if you're part of a family that flies everywhere. It's a limited experience. And then the reward punishment system that you find yourself in by the people that you find yourself around.
Yes.
Right? Now this is your identity. This is who you are, right? And when everyone says you got to find yourself, you got to find what you're good at. Well, what I'm good at are often things what I'm praised for doing.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And what I'm bad at are things that someone made fun of because I didn't do it well enough. And that's reward punishment in some fashion. And then once we find out who we are, then we just throw all of our eggs in that basket because that was the way it was done.
Yes.
It was like, everyone's telling you, find a job that you love. Find a job that you love. Do something that you like. Now, like the millennials are coming on and they're like, I want to work for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all great, and I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I work for myself, and I think that that's a really great challenge. But every millennial wants to do it, and so that is like that's going to have ramifications down the line, right? Like just like
already seeing some of them,
right. But just like us who grew up in, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but like us that grew up like in the 80s, saw the greedy 80s.
Yes.
And we were like, oh, fuck that. A lot of people were either like, I'm in it and I want to be CEO, which I couldn't imagine, like doing that for myself. But they want a lot of stuff. I'm here at my sister's house. My sister has a lot of stuff, and that fills her in a way, right, that is attached to her perception and her identity.
Yes.
Right. And for me, I like to shed as much identity as I can so that I don't have to hold on to. I always like to think if you have an identity, then you're a sucker, or at least you have the potential of being a sucker. Because if you have an identity, anybody can come up and say, do you want to be this? Whatever it is you want to be. Well, then you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an identity and it's not truly who you are, then you will go get that thing.
Yeah.
Go be that thing.
Yes.
Call yourself that thing.
Yes.
Embrace that thing that someone else is telling you you got to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone tells you, you know, like for many years, people were saying you got to be lifelong learners, lifelong learners, lifelong learners. Now we find out that everyone's buying courses. Only 10% of the people that are taking them are getting them done.
Yes.
So
Yes. Very
laugh up
true.
by the course, because there's an identity that we're holding on to, that we want to be lifelong learners because that's what we were told to be. We want to be educated because education was pushed so hard. In my lifetime, education was promoted and advertised through government, right? Like the presidents would come out and say, go to school, go to school, go to school. And we were like, for me, I was like, school isn't where I want to be. So I never went to school. I mean, I did go to school a little bit, but I never got a bachelor's degree or anything like that. Cause I was like, that's not for me. And for a long time, I had a lot of shame of that because I had my own identity.
Yep. Yep.
And then I embraced the fact that I didn't like school, and I would say things like, reading is for losers. New identity. Right? New identity. Yep. Reading is for losers. Like, you guys don't, you know, like, I don't need to be well read, you know. And as I realized that was just another identity, just like my having grown up in Chicago, I would never be upset if someone put ketchup on a hot dog until I learned that was what you did as a Chicagoan. Then now I have something to stand on, right?
Yes.
So all of those identities, from my limited perspective, from my reward and punishment, and then my rebelliousness, right? So it was like, reward and punishment, shame because I didn't go to school, or shame because I didn't read, and then rebelliousness, I take my identity, right? And that's what we're seeing in, you know, the LGBTQIA kind of thing. It's just like, I'm going to take my stuff back. Great.
Yep.
Pendulum swings, but it's going to swing back. But
it absolutely is.
If you and all of the cohort holds on to that identity longer than it's helpful,
yep,
then it's going to weigh you down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's where, you know, I have found myself a number of times within my life and my growth process and my recovery process. And, you know, I'm correlating with what you're saying while you're talking, and I can see all those places where we trade one for the other. And I do see that as well happening, especially in that, you know, that community. Is that also what becomes so dangerous about it, and we've talked about this, is when it is threatened, you know. And I think that one of the ways that I know for me that I'm building on a paper thin identity because of some outside, you know, whatever I'm seeing, this is what I want, or this is what I want, is I know for sure that it doesn't truly belong to me, or is not who I am, whenever it is challenged and I feel like I've got to immediately respond and fight for it. Not even respond, react, you know, immediate. Because when you and I had that initial conversation that I talked about in the beginning of the video, that really became like this moment of expansion and freedom for me, my initial reaction, you know, was to react, like, wait a minute, and it was to recoil and put up, you know, my guard. It's like, you don't know. But it was so true, because I felt it in my soul, like it hit me like a bullet in the soul, like you almost did that thing, you know, like you almost built on that. And that identity comes in with that I'll be happy when. And I believe also that we've seen this a lot in the recovery process, because for the longest time, the only way to be in recovery was this one way. And if you didn't identify in that way, or it didn't work for you, then something was wrong with you. And I remember experiencing a lot of shame, and I doubled down on the identity of just being an addict who was just, I'm never going to be anything more than this, so I'm going to be the best fucking addict. Like, exactly.
Reading is for losers. Like,
I'm proud of this. Yeah,
12
like I'm just
for losers. Like,
that's right.
You got 12 steps. I got one. Right.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
Whatever. Like,
absolutely.
Whatever you got to say.
Absolutely. And now we seem to be in a place where, you know, there's expansion happening, and it can also be scary in that expansion, because the one thing about identities is they do give us something to create from. It's like, okay, well, if I'm this and I'm this and this, I can build from this.
Right.
Being out of,
I can
yeah,
build. I can build.
I can
Right. Everybody
build,
wants to build.
and we can
Thing
build,
is,
get more.
if I can, I don't want to cut you off,
No,
but
no, no, go for it.
I don't want to go too far afield before I talk about this kind of sort of thing. Like building is going to happen regardless. Your
Yeah.
value exists regardless of what you do and who you are.
Yes.
Your value exists regardless of what you do and who you are. You are going to build. I could not have planned my life in a way that brought me here, in which I am translating the Tao Te Ching. I would have never thrown all of the things together that made it possible for me to do that. And yet it was built. Despite my inept sort of attempt at living life, right? Like, and I utilize that with loving, with a lot of love, because like I don't live life in the way that it is prescribed. I don't, like, it's like, all right, well, you gotta succeed at one thing and then move on to the next thing and then move on to the next thing. And then you settle down and you do a thing and you do it for, like, or whatever. And that's how it was brought up to me. Maybe that's
Right.
not.
Right. Me too.
But,
yeah.
But that's how it was expressed to me, that this is how you live a good life, and that's
success.
Right. And this is how you become a success. And this is how you do things. Like, you're not a success. You're not, and it's like, yeah, but I've achieved. I don't want to say anything else other than that. It's like, I've achieved getting to this point. And if there are things that I have done that you would not do, that doesn't mean that I did it in a way that was bad or it's just like, because my identity is not hell bent on doing it one way.
Yes. Yeah. I'm with Kim, who, I love that whole thing that you started with, is that your value, is there regardless of the identity. And I think that is a place where I know I have suffered, because that whole identity is so richly ingrained within us. I would really love to hear, because I might be at a stretch and maybe, whatever, but I think a lot of people they're hearing this information, that your value exists without it, but they don't know how to tap into that, into like understanding that. And I'd like to hear your take on how to tap into that and separate from all of the identities and the ways that we're supposed to do it. I mean, every ad, we've talked about this before, because we used to talk about our platforms, like everything says we got to do it this way, and this way, but it doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel right to do it this way, and this way. And so we kind of had to separate. And I know I went through some feelings of, oh, I'm not successful here. I don't have any value if I can't make this work, but I've tried and I can't make it work. What he's talked about.
I want to see return on my investment.
Sure.
That kind of
stuff. Yeah. But you've mastered, I don't know if you would call it mastered, but you're doing very well.
I understand what you're saying. Like,
like knowing value regardless.
So let me start with, like, why getting rid of identity is, what I have seen getting rid of identity offers first, because I think that that's really key. When I spoke to you about, in that first conversation that kind of blew everything out of the water for you, that was coming from someone who wasn't there. Right? If I held on to my identity, I'd be like, and I don't know your experience. I've known many trans individuals, and it's very often that straight cisgender people coddle you guys a bit. They're like,
either
you're my
this
friend.
way or that way. Yeah, this way or that way.
Yeah. And I'm gonna, like, and you guys are, for the people that want to be known as allies, treat you guys with kid gloves. and you don't have really great conversations that are
Right.
honest,
Yes.
because motherfuckers are stuck in their identities,
Yes.
and they're stuck in the identity that they're not trained.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they see in you is trained. I can give a fuck what the hell you've gone through. And
Yeah.
so not that like whatever, like all right, you went through that, and I appreciate that. Like I get that, like there's some people born black. Like fuck, like they got some shit. I got fucking
Right.
like, like
Right.
people often treat their, when they have very few black friends, they treat their black friends with kid gloves. I mean, I have a lot of black friends, and when I have conversations with them about race, they're like, I can't have conversations like this with white folks because I don't have an identity. Because I don't have
Right.
the identity of being a white dude. I don't have the identity of being a straight cisgender dude. I'm not holding on to that. I don't give a fuck. So I get to have a conversation with you, and I get to be a mirror for you because I am not holding all of this identity.
Right.
If you want to communicate with people truly and honestly, you get rid of your identity as much
Yeah.
as you can, at this moment.
Yes.
And that means recognizing where your identity is getting in the way and yada, yada. Now, it's not always possible for me to get rid of my identity. Like I can get in my own way all the time.
Absolutely.
You
Yep.
know, I recently broke up with Andy, my girlfriend, who is a beautiful woman, and I had I have so much love for, but the relationship was an identity that I was holding on to and ruined the relationship.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know, both my identity of being in the relationship and probably her identity of being in the relationship.
Yep.
Now,
Brought new
we don't
expectations.
have a relationship. The love that we started our relationship with is back, and it's beautiful, and we're able to connect, and we're able to do all these things. Why? The identity that we held on to has been
Yeah.
tabled. And so
Yeah.
it's like, good, okay, let's just be here and love each other rather than be here and be boyfriend, girlfriend,
Yep.
or
And have
have
to do all the stuff.
or
Yeah.
build some future or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
let's be here with
Yeah.
this and be and that becomes so much deeper than holding on to that identity, right? And so those are the things that I see when we can strip identity. And that does mean sometimes stripping desire. Now, that is where we have addiction problems, right? We want
Definitely.
things, we want this, we want that, and we hold on to all of that stuff, and we want to grasp at those things. And every time we do, we're giving ourselves, and every time we succeed at a little step towards it, every time we see a little glimmer of it, like we're getting that deep
Yeah.
addiction, that
Yeah.
deep connection to,
Yeah.
well, this is the right way because I'm getting full of my own drugs,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
as soon as we start to say, okay, well, what if I didn't have desire? Now marketing comes back into play, because if you lose desire, then you start saying, well, if you don't stand for something, then you stand for nothing. And if you don't, like if you're not trying, like there's no reason for you to play small and all of these things. And it's like, this is all manipulative ways of getting you back on track to have desires, give up of yourself so that you can fit in. And there are wonderful people out there who will turn to their friends and put them down because they are not getting in line. Unconscious, subconsciously, they will put people down, and they will talk down to people that they love because they're not being fooled by the same things. They're not attaching to the identity. They're not
Yeah.
doing the things. And now we have struggle, right? Now we have resistance. Now we have like inner fighting. And if somebody loses their identity, you can tell me whatever you want, and I'm not going to attack you. I'm going to look back at myself. I'm going to be self-reflective, and I'm going to look back inward at the truth of who I am, you know, and not the peripheral identity.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I like to go back to that what you were talking about, because I think that people don't even understand the conversations that you and I get to have because that we have taken all of that stuff out of the way. Even at this point, like even our most recent conversation to me was just was refreshing because we weren't dancing around each other's identity, and I'm grateful for that. And I have these great conversations, and I hope, I think that that's what, that's the kind of relationships that I like to have in the world where, it's not about my transness or your cisgenderedness. It's about being able to have those conversations and have real conversations. And to that part of the trans community that feels like you can't have an honest conversation or that your transness needs to be coddled, that can cause a lot of pain. And I've been there because what you were talking about is it's either this way or that way. So either somebody just absolutely don't understand and then they just decide, well, I can't, we can't connect here, or because I, in my own life, have been the person that has been, oh, I get to have a trans friend now, so you're my trans friend, and I have been, within that identity, like even right before I met you, I fell into a trap where all of a sudden I was the clown. Like I was now the clown in somebody's circus, and I didn't realize it until my inner self started revolting against this. And the person asked me a question: do you feel like I'm using you? And when they asked me that question, my inner being just piped up and said, yes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it just began to become clear. And then, of course, right after that, you and I met, and this has been a few years ago, and you and I met, and I've had the ability to have some really true connected conversations, like, with you, my friend Pamela, a lot of the people that I've met even this year, Danny and Kim, and a lot of people that just get to see the human that you are. And when you and I were talking about that, and yeah, Kim, that being respectful, like as human beings, that's a whole, that's important for all of us. But
and I
when
you say that you can't, if you don't have identity, you can't not be respectful.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Because it's your identity that packages what you are delivering. If you don't have a package on that, I can challenge and I can say things, but it will be coming from a place of deep love.
That's exactly where
it is not. It is not like, and so if you say first respect, then you are already packaging it in identity, because what the hell is respect to you as an individual with an identity?
Right. And that's why I was able, and that point is so perfect, because that's why I was able to receive what it was that you gave me, because that's we were connecting on just a human level, and that was the heart. And that's so, like, it's so true, without the identity that is trying to package. Because to me, I feel like if I've got to shape my conversation, I've brought this up so many times, but I had to leave my support group, my trans support group, because I felt like a representative had to go in first, and I had to package everything that I said in hopes not to offend people that I didn't even know. And there was not the grace for me to just come in and be human and learn. And I felt like that's what we should be doing here. Just because I, am transgender, okay? Just because that's it. It doesn't come with a rule book, and it doesn't come with a book on how to be and a support group. That's identity.
You're Lona.
Exactly.
transgender is just a fucking, just another fucking
Just a
word that we're putting
it
on
is.
fucking, like, identity. Like,
It exactly it.
You're just Lona.
That's it. That's
Like,
it.
who fucking
That's
cares?
it.
Like,
And so why we can't treat each other, you know, like that was the thing. Like I could not, if I package, I never have close relationships with you. And so if we have to package that, we never get through that. And so I never really know the real you, and you never really know the real me. And there's this amazing connection happens
if we have to package
when
that,
we move that.
we understand is respect.
Yes.
And I don't, and no, you know, like that's coming from my heart. Like, like if you believe that that you as an individual, whoever you is, like, has the rule book on respect, and then, like, all of a sudden everything gets passed through that filter, well, then you are getting passed through that filter.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't be who you are. Now,
Yes.
Are you going to make mistakes and offend people? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you don't pretend to be the victim, then you will grow and start to learn, oh, wait, that's my identity getting in the way. My identity got in the way. I offended somebody because really, like, if we talk about being, you know, respectful in that conversation you and I were having, you were disrespecting yourself way more than I was.
Absolutely.
But you were the one that got offended internally because you had an identity you had to hold on.
Yes.
And so, and because I wasn't trying to be nice or respectful or anything. I didn't, none of that was there, because I can just be me. I can look at you and say, I love you. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that's what happens when we can get rid of our identity. If our identity is I'm a helper, or I'm someone who wants, you know, like you and I, we work in recovery. We want to make sure that people do, you know, like, understand things. We're teachers, whatever we want to call ourselves, mentors, But if I wrap everything I do in that, then all of a sudden I can't be me. And I am so much more than that definition.
So true.
Being a mentor, I have, you know, like, I mean, I'm not religious, but I mean, I did write the Tao. So I mean, the Tao is with me. God is with me. Like, I am God. It is within me. It is, and I am being
separate.
guided by something greater. And that thing that I'm being guided on doesn't have an identity. Right. God of the Bible, if that's the limited God, you know, like if that's the God you believe in, like, I feel sorry for so many people who
very limited
that as such a small, like he's vengeful and he's angry. And even Jesus, I mean, Jesus is good. You know, Jesus is a great, you know, like what would Jesus do? Like, yeah, Jesus had it together. Jesus didn't have an identity. You know, like, everyone put one on him, but, you know, he was able to heal others because he didn't have identity. Yeah. Because he wasn't trying to hold on to anything. I mean, you know, he went around talking about being God's son and stuff a lot, you know, but he was saying that for everybody. Yes. Yeah. Right. It wasn't just for him. It was like, you are this, right? Yeah. Like, and we're the same. Yes. Like, I can walk on water, but so can you. Just start working towards it, you know? Right. Yeah, that whole place of separation, and then, you know, we talk about identity. I believe that brings us to a place of separation, especially from the Creator, because I guess when I think about what is the ultimate place outside of, again, because what that mirrored to me, our conversation was, well, my gosh, well, if I'm not this, well, then what am I? You know, like, what am I then? You know, because I gotta have all this stuff to say. You know, what comes after I am? And it's only when I started, and it was a difficult process. You know, I say it now, and it sounds like it went quick, and it was, you know, all good, and it was a very, me too. Still, this is at the core of everything I do. Everything. Because this is still, you know, it every day it kind of tickles some other place in me where I have these belief systems of separation. But the ultimate place of answering the question, well, what am I then,
is just a divine breath of creation.
Yeah.
You know? I'm a divine breath of creation, and within that it feels so expansive within me. There's no limits within that, you know? There's no just restriction I feel in that. Now, to say that doesn't mean that I don't find sometimes a place of, okay, how do I comprehend this? Because the identity almost brings this place of how do I comprehend? And so I comprehend this because my brain's always looking for a reason. And sometimes it can be scary to feel that expanded when there's so much swirling around about identity and the closeness and I feel like just as a collective that there is this feeling of wanting to break through those walls and to be that bigness, but it's scary. Just to be truly honest, it can be very scary because it doesn't represent all of those, the
Well,
identities.
yeah, when we once again when we turn to marketing, we turn to our neighbor, when we turn to look for guidance, which we have been trained to do very well, reward and punishment systems that we have. Um, what do we find? We find people telling us, well, this is what's worked.
Mm-hmm.
And what's worked is you holding on to an identity that we can understand
Yeah.
and staying there.
Yeah.
And I can't, and even if you break out of one identity into another identity, it's just like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
much of a room. But it's like, it was explained to me by Alan Baker, someone I've interviewed, and beautiful man, talked to me about a number of things, always so brilliant. Talk to me about this as like a rocket booster. When you are stuck in a dense area in your life, you need to get out of the atmosphere of that dense area, and something like 12 steps will be like a rocket booster to get you through the density of that planet of addiction. Let's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you get out of the atmosphere, those rocket boosters are no longer useful and just weigh you down.
That's so true.
And it's so important to be able to drop dead weight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an identity that is that cannot see dead weight, if you have an identity that is so attached to, like, whether
Itself
it's being
almost.
educated, whether it's being in recovery, whether it's being religious, whether it's being a mother, whether it's being I don't know what else, like what other identities are, like whether it's being, a recovery coach or a
Mm-hmm.
coach or a CEO or whatever it is, if your identity is so attached to that and it no longer is beneficial for you as an individual, like, we can call that selfish. We can say, oh, well, you're being selfish, but really it's like, well, what else is on this? What am I here to do if not like be selfish in that way? At least, like,
Mm-hmm.
is this bringing me to the next place? Is this, like, if I was attached to my podcast, it'd be like, oh, I gotta get, like, no, it's like, I'm not feeling it. We're just not going to do it for a while, and it might come back. I did Transfiguration, which you and I are going
Yeah.
to collaborate on. That was a project that I started in 2014, and I was just like, put it down until I pick it up again. Well, it looks like I'll be picking it up again.
Absolutely.
How and when and all of those things will get worked out, but it's there now, right? It's
Yeah.
back here. And why? Maybe it's a better time. Maybe I'm in a better place for it. Maybe because you're in my life. Who knows? But like, if I held on to my production company and I held on to the concept of, I came up with this great idea for this documentary and it had to be this way, and I stuck to it, and it has to be a feature-length documentary, and it has to be this and it has to be that. Well, maybe it would have never gotten. Maybe it'll
Right.
never. right? And maybe it
Right.
won't ever get done, and that's okay too. But
Yeah.
the idea that like what I hold on to is going to be the thing that holds me back.
Mm.
You know, it's good to
Yeah.
be here now. You know, like as
Yes.
you know, Andy would say, like that's Ram Dass, be here now, right? I think that's
Yeah.
one of his books, right? Be here
Yep.
now. Great, be here now. But we can only, in our world today, especially with social media and everything else, it's just like be here now for as long as you can, because you're not going to be here now in about 3 minutes. You know,
Right.
like you're going to be
Right.
able to be somewhere else real quick. And
Right.
we're going to, you know, there's the metaverse, and there is social media, and there is, you know, all of the people that are telling you that you are ill and you need help and you can't do it. And there's everything in your life that is saying, I can't, like, this isn't good. I'm unhappy. Well, it's just like, can you be happy with what's going on in your life? Because I know when people work with me for that 1 month through a full recover yourself thing, their life doesn't change at all, and their lives can change completely
Completely.
because of
Absolutely.
them, not because of what. And they're always like, people come to me having looked outside of themselves and said, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, and then I just say, shut up, tell me what's going on with you. You know, like in like my work's not that simple, obviously, but you know, ultimately I'm like, where are you in what you're experiencing? And it's like, we always find it, they always get through it, and their lives always turn around within 30 days. Why?
Yep.
Because it doesn't take much. All
Yeah.
you got to do is stop identifying with that which you believe yourself to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Or what you believe yourself to not be. And that's like to me, you know, like everything that I see now, and it used to excite me, you know, when we watch movies like The Secret, and we talk about law of attraction and law of attraction and law of attraction, and people believe, you know, that you've got to, and I was once a part of this, you got to think these things into existence. And there is such a power that comes in being happy right where you are, because that's when you release attachment, and releasing attachment is what now opens your own spirit up to receive more happiness. It's not about being where I am and thinking about where I want to be so much, because then suffering comes in. It's like, well, I'm not there, so I'm not doing good. I'm not there. It was just this moment of realizing that the energy that I'm putting out by doing that, projecting myself there, is just the energy of want. It's not the energy of having. You know, ask and believe you have received. You know, it's like a past tense. It's already there.
Yeah,
It's
already there.
It's already
like,
there.
all of the money in the world is at your disposal.
Absolutely.
And if you can't see that, shit ain't my problem. Like,
right. It's the thing about not projecting like out. We have to realize, what is the emotion I'm actually putting out. By wanting to win the lottery, I'm putting out an emotion that says, I'm not abundant. I'll be happy when. And those things come with these traps, and it's easy to fall through the trapdoor of marketing and the trapdoor of this is how you do it.
I mean, I do it. Like, you know, when people are constantly yelling at me, do you know why you don't have clients? Do you know why? And I'm just like, well, I don't know. And it's just like, okay, whoa. Just turn this shit off. So I can go for a walk. And
Yeah. And it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing that we can remind ourselves, because it is easy to fall back into those. And I want to preface this. It's something that you said earlier. You know, I never in a million years would have, you know, designed my life and my blueprint in a way that this is where I would be, or these are the things that I'd get to do, and have conversations like this with other human beings in the world. I would never have designed that. And I'm grateful for all the identities that I have, you know, gotten to be a part of in this, even the one that I slip in and out of now, you know, because it's very easy, because that's what's kind of in the condition, to dip in and out. And I think that it is this, to me, this is why I'm grateful to have friends in my life that have, you know, a different, that have done a whole lot of work within themselves, and like yourself and my friend Pam and just so many people that I know, and that, I'm just reminded that it's okay to be doing the work. It's okay to
So
slip in and out.
it's
It's
really
okay.
important to know that it's not wrong or bad to have an identity.
Absolutely.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Like the thing is you have your identity for a time for a very specific reason.
Yes.
It's it's what you were born into an experience. You are not born knowing everything. You don't have
Yeah.
a frame of reference. And because you
Yeah.
don't have a frame of reference, you have to maneuver. As you maneuver and as you kind of do your thing and live your life, you're going to pick up certain beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you think that you're going to get out of this planet, get off of this planet and get out of this life without having like picked anything up, well, then you're not living.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you, my addictions and all of my identities just made my life sweeter.
Yeah.
Made my life today so much sweeter. That's not to say people don't get out of addiction, but you know what? I care for them, but I can't do anything for them. Like,
Yeah.
this was their experience. And, you know, we have to remember that the experience is had by the experiencer.
Mm.
You and I are having very different experiences, as is everybody else listening to this. What I'm saying is being heard by everybody differently, being translated differently. Some people may be going into self-doubt and regret or judgment. Other people might be like, yes, and feeling good. Other people might be confused. Doesn't even matter. What I say and what you hear have nothing to do with one another.
Mm.
It's all about identity. And like the wonderful thing about like some of the conversations I have is I don't even remember them. I don't have to. I'm going to go to bed. And like someone might say, "Oh, I saw you on that interview yesterday." I'd be like, I don't remember having an interview yesterday. Oh yeah, that's right. I did this, because I would have to think about it. It doesn't sit with me. I don't remember things. And because it's over. My identity here is here and now. Who I am, how I'm being. And I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about what I'm really like. There are times where you say something, it sparks something, and I want to say it. And so I do. But, it's like those identities that we carry, there's never anything wrong with it. If you don't like it,
Right.
now we can do something. Right? Now something can be done. I don't like this person that I was when I was at a restaurant and I got upset, or I was mean to the waitress. I was just like, okay, well, what can I do to be better at that? Right? What can I do to be more loving in situations in which I'm carrying identity?
Mm.
What can I do to what part of my identity is getting in the way of me loving this moment, this person, this experience? We're moving into on Tuesday. We're gonna be voting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, can you love the other side and recognize that this is what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that's happening wherever you are, because of course those are specific, but you're the person you're the experiencer. You're having this, nobody else. And our trying to be to hold on to some identity, whether that's Democrat or Republic or independent or whatever, us trying to hold on to those identities sets us up to be suckers.
Mm-hmm.
It sets us up to just, not always fight for what is best for us right now.
Yeah. 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 Calls you to fight for sometimes what's best for the identity, what's best for the rules, what's best
Right.
for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
I don't
it's a
know,
lot of it.
like we have like there is identity out the fucking wazoo right now. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
coming out of a pandemic. We have like there's talk of treason, and there's talk of like sedition, and there's talk of all sorts of stuff. Like, and there are places you can go to continue to cement your identity, and no matter what it is you want to cement your identity in, you can do it just as easy as pie. And so, how hard is that?
Yeah.
What's hard is doing something where people are going to say, well, if you don't do this, then everything's going to go to pot, and you're the problem. I had people tell me I was the problem many, many times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've changed. I changed by kind of stepping back and releasing even more, because it was just like, no, it's like, I'm not going to. People told me that I was the problem in their mind because they're afraid. But what happens in my experience is like, oh, well, are you trying to get me to change who I am? And those are things that, again, I'm the experiencer. So I'm having the experience. What they're doing is they're having an experience. They have to look at that. I have to look at this. I don't look at what they said. I look at what I experienced.
Yes. Yes. That's a great and beautiful point. It's great validation for, what my friend Pamela said to me today after a conversation that you and I had about, that the being able to see that place in me that says, why do I feel responsible? And so, I've been working with that since our conversation. It's just been an amazing, amazingly hard at times, challenging, and also just an amazing experience. And the validation of that was that, Pamela told me today, remember that when you just step in, that you can rob that person of their experience and their lesson. And it's just this whole thing that we talk about is like bringing it back home to me and finding out, like, why am I experiencing that way? What am I holding on to? And I love the way that our friendship, I love all the areas it's challenged. I love all the areas it's grown. I love all the ways my love and my being has expanded. I'm grateful for being able to just have a moment like this in time and to have a friend like yourself, because so many times, I am easy to slip back into, I must not be doing things right. I'm not doing things right. And it's always,
me too. Yeah, it's all there.
It's great to share
It's
that.
like, like, I'm not going to be on an interview and like not believe in myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I come out and I'm here, but like this is, like, if we look at the traditional markets of success, and we look at the traditional sort of ways that we, like, this is all just facade. But if we look at like deep sort of growth, I can give a fuck about a lot of that usually.
Yep.
And when we talk, you talk about manifesting and stuff like that. I'm like, one of the things that came to me one time is, if I can manifest anything, and I knew I could, I probably wouldn't manifest anything. You would just be like, no, manifesting's fucking easy. Like, let me live what's happening.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to manifest $1 million. Why? Let's see how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
Like, why do I want $1 million? What am I going to do with that? Like,
I'm going to believe it can fix something.
Why don't we see how we can fucking like manifest a house? Manifest the fucking like.
Yeah.
Manifest
There's the miracle.
all of the things. Like, the world is supporting you. Like, I was talking to Andy the other day, and she was talking to a homeless guy. He found a brand new iPhone on the ground, called the number, and got a reward. And she was just like, fuck off. Everybody's getting, like, I never find an iPhone on the ground. Brand new motherfucking iPhone. Like, she's like, the universe is helping everybody.
Yeah.
Like, yep, helping everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that deal. Yeah.
Feel like you're doing something. Like, you're part of it. You're part of it. You give someone money because it comes from your heart. You're part of it.
You absolutely are. And I think, and everything counts towards that. We get, like, we get clouded by these things. Oh, I've got to do this big thing for it to count. And that's really not the truth.
Yeah.
And if we slow down and really start experiencing our life, all that abundance that the $1 million is going to bring exists within your world, like right now.
Right.
You know, I had this amazing experience where, and I think I might have talked to you about it, where I've been going through some different health things. And so all the things you listen to, they say, you know, about healing and different things, you know, it still leaves you focusing on the pain or the issue. But what I started realizing is when I connected with how amazing that my body was, just in a way that was like, oh my gosh, like my heart just knows when to beat, and it just beats and flows blood through, and it's got all these intricate, what an amazingly abundant creation. Within 5 minutes, you know, like I wasn't feeling pain. I was within this space of what a big creation and all of this stuff is. Like, you know, how big is my world? How abundant is my world right now without even the stuff? It was amazing.
I was talking to my buddy Alan, who I mentioned earlier, and one time I was like, I had pain in my knee or something. This was years and years ago. He was just like, you know, pain and pleasure, like they run along the same lines. So you might want to just start to redefine it. You know, just start looking at it as being pleasurable.
That's so true.
And, you know, it's crazy how we identify with, well, that's pain, this is pleasure. There's not much difference, you know, like it's really, you know, and that came to me, you know, through my MS, because I can't feel temperature sensation on my lower right quadrant still. And it's funny when you get rid of that certain thing, whether it's something is hot or whether something is cold, the feeling is the same. I just don't know whether it's hot or whether it's cold. You know, and so it's really interesting how that opened me up to the idea of like, no, it's all the same.
Yeah.
You know, like don't get yourself wrapped up in a conversation that's just losing, like it's just distracting you. Because of your identity, the conversation is distracting you. Because you identify this as hot, you're being distracted from what you're actually feeling. Because now you're saying, oh, that's hot. Well, the feeling is the same, and it's good to be able to tell the difference between hot and cold. I'm not trying to say that, but like that happens to us, right? Like, are we focused on what side of the aisle the conversation is, or if the conversation is worth having at all?
Yeah.
You know, because maybe it's just like, oh, there's a conversation happening. Do I want to be involved in it? Is this me? And I'm not trying to say I'm going to vote, all of those sorts of things, all that kind of stuff. But it's a real big deal.
It's a huge thing.
Figure out what is your identity telling you about this moment.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this episode with you right now, because I was just being very inundated in so much that's happening, to the point that I was just feeling so weighted down, and I really had to take myself back from it and start examining all the places that it was really hitting in me, and find out, you know, what inside of me, like what do I want to do around this? Because, you know, this is my experience for me. Exactly. For me, this is my experience. How do I want to have a better experience in my life? And there's going to be some things I got to let go of, and some things that I really got to examine. And, you know, that's one of the reasons, because that's what I see a lot of what's even happening, and it seems to just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just so much around identity. And it seems to be this, you know, just what we've said tonight, you know, like I want to build this box around you so that I can understand it. I can also understand.
You're going to reward me for helping you build that box?
Exactly.
Good.
That's it.
Here's
That's
the
it.
box. Let me build it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yep.
there's my
You're
validation.
gonna reward me for it. You're gonna give me money for it. Oh, great. Let me
Yep.
build that box.
Let me
real
do
quick.
that for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, ain't no big deal. Like let me just
Absolutely.
let me just rob myself of all that makes me special, so that I can fit in your little fucking box.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
When
and then I
happy.
can relate to my neighbors, and I can
Yes.
and I can relate to the TV, and I can relate.
And I can know where I belong. Yeah, and I can
Yeah.
know where I belong and where I
Yeah.
don't belong, even though I kind of want to be in all areas at once and experience everything. So it's been a beautiful time, to spend this with you. And at this great time in history, there is the ability to look at things in fear. There is the ability to look at things with the positivity of, this is an opening. This is an opening. So I just thank you for spending this time with me and everyone that's here, saying hey to Danny and Brett and Pamela and Kim and Andy and
That's
Andy.
No, she's
Yeah.
she's doing great work.
Yes, I've actually seen some of Andy's work, and I think Andy's a pretty special human being as well. And anyone that I cannot see, Paula Folsom, great for you to be here. Janet, Joni, everyone who's here, and those that I can't see, thanks for hanging with us and having this conversation. And I really hope, yeah, I thank you, man, and I hope that this just brings things to think about. I know our conversations always lead me into these wonderful places and these wonderful times of thought and deeper introspection and understanding, and they just expand my whole world. So I thank you for that, and I just wanted to make sure we shared that tonight. And it's been great.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. I mean, talking about identity is like, I don't even know if like what we ended up really talking about. Like, I hope that it generated some people just to think, because like,
That's all.
I don't, like for me, it's always about recovering yourself. So your
Yes.
identity is what's most like you deep down, not the you that, like is attached to all the things that you're attached to. Cause all of that stuff is just, all that stuff is,
It's false security.
You are what you are. Everything else you're going to lose. So if you could lose it, if you can lose it, it's not you. Your body, your life, your partners, your mind, your eyesight, your limbs. If you could lose it, it's not you. Everything else is you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We're gonna just end it right there. It's a drop the mic moment, and we're gonna just end it right there. Make sure you connect with MartinJon right here on his link tree, his interpretation of the Tao Te Ching. I am eagerly awaiting its release every single day. But you can also find MartinJon doing the Tao of the Day on the Wisdom app. But get there with his link tree. He's got all kinds of amazing stuff, content everywhere, and I just love you, man. There's just not one part of you that I don't love. I really do love you, and I thank you so much for spending this time with me. And everyone else, thank you for being here and sharing this time with us. And, give us your feedback, give us your comments. I want to know, if something resonated with you here, or, just what you're going through, where you are, what you need, and let's just talk about things. We are right here waiting on you, and I've been gone for a little while, and now I'm back, and I may be ending the season in December. We don't know. I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen, but I know there's different things coming. So thank you all for being a part of this with me. Martin, I love you so much. And everyone else, I will see you all next weekend. And until then, have an amazing week. All right. I love you. Bye, guys.